April 15th is tax day. And you should be thrilled to pay your taxes this week because in the future they are going to soar unless Congress miraculously cuts spending. That's right. A short time ago, I spoke with Utah Republican Senator Orrin Hatch, senior member of the Senate Finance Committee. He says the top tax rate could go to 85 or 90% in the years ahead. Take a listen. As you know, April 15th, Thursday, is tax day. My thought is we are lucky to pay taxes this coming Thursday because if you all in Congress don't cut spending, then tax rates are going to spiral out of control in future years, and it's going to get worse and worse. What are you thinking, sir?
There's no question about it. According to the president's own budget, the CBO says that we're going to double our deficit in 5 years and triple it in 10. By 2020, we will be spending about, our national debt will be about $20.3 trillion. Now that's 90% of our GDP. We simply can't sustain that. But that's what they're doing to us. And I've got to tell you, there's no question that taxes are going to go up. By 2019, there's an estimated almost 15 million people are going to be paying about $3.9 billion more in taxes. And that's 15 million people below the threshold of $200,000, which of course shows that the president has not told the truth on that. And that's just cost because of the health care bill.
Well, Senator, let's dig in on this. I mean, these are not happy statements you're making. And no. I want to go back. The very well-respected Tax Policy Center's got a new study out. And here's what they're saying. Just to get the budget deficit down to 3% of GDP, okay, not balanced, just 3% of GDP.
Right.
First of all, they say, if we only focus on the top tax rates, the rich people, then we're going to 77%. That would be the marginal tax rate. But they go on to say, even if we raise tax rates on everybody, the bottom rate would go to 10 to 14%, even though nobody pays it. And the top rate would go all the way up to close to 50%. So these are unpalatable options. And I want to ask you, how are we going to get around this? And what's the plans to cut spending? Because otherwise, we are going to tax ourselves and our economy into extinction.
Well, there's no plan to cut spending. I just got through voting against the unemployment insurance liftoff again today because the Democrats won't cover what the costs are. They won't pay for it. And they just keep adding bill after bill, expense after expense. I mean, they're selling our children, our grandchildren, great-grandchildren, in my case, their future right down the drain. And I don't understand why the people under 29 years of age are so supportive of this president and of this administration. They're actually ruining their future.
Well, how does the 77% top tax rate strike you?
Oh, listen, it's going to be somewhere between 85 and 90% if we don't do something about it. And that's just untenable. The only way you can raise this money is to tax the middle class, and that's what they're going to do. And they'll say they're not, but that's exactly what they have to do in order to keep this spending going. They're not willing to cut back at all. They're not willing to cut expenses in any way, shape, or form. And today was just a perfect illustration of it.
Well, let me ask you a couple more on this, because, look, you're going to either be the top-ranking Republican on the Finance Committee, which writes taxes, or you may be the chairman of the Finance Committee if there's a regime change in November. First of all, this morning we had liberal Robert Reich and conservative Marty Feldstein. They both came out against Paul Volcker's VAT tax proposal. How do you stand on the VAT tax, Senator Hatch?
Well, it's hard for me to understand how Paul Volcker, as bright as he is going to ask for a value-added tax, something that is Europe's worst nightmare. That's a progressive tax that literally allows the left to continue to increase taxes the rest of our lives. I've said many times that they're just trying to Europeanize America. Now, the value-added tax, my gosh, anytime you want to increase it, they'll be able to increase it. And, you know, it's one thing to say we need to add a value-added tax. It's another thing to say, but we're not going to cut any spending. We're not going to get spending under control. We're not going to live within constitutional mandates. We're not going to, find any way of trying to make this system work. We're going to at least 25% and more than 25% of our GDP in expenses in this country. The normal rate is somewhere around 20%. It's just awful.
All right, well, Scott Rasmussen's latest poll out yesterday He says people feel like they're overtaxed. 66% say that America taxes them too much. And interestingly, sir, 75%, according to the Rasmussen poll, say the top tax rate should only be 20%. But we're looking at 77, 78% top rates. And that isn't even to balance the budget. Again, that's just to get us to 3% of GDP deficit. So let me ask you the $64,000, $64 billion, $64 trillion question, Senator Orrin Hatch, soon to be chairman of the Finance Committee. What about spending cuts? What is the Republican message here, sir?
Well, we need to make spending cuts. We need to cut back on this almighty federal government. Look, the average wage in the federal government is $80,000 a year. Think about the average wage out there among the people. It's less than $40,000 a year. And there's all these fringe benefits and other benefits that come to federal employees. And a lot of it is because the largest unions in this country happen to be federal employer unions, and you know, it's catching up with us. We have just plain allowed the federal government to run out of control for far too long. And some people have said, well, you Republicans, you know, you had 6 years where you had both houses of Congress and the president during the Bush years. Give me a break. I've been here 34 years, and other than good presidential leadership and just sheer guts, we have never had a fiscal conservative majority in the United States Senate any day in those 34 years.
Well, Senator, I might be one of those people that would say you Republicans had the House and Senate for 6 years, and you didn't curb spending. I mean, look, okay, federal employees' pay and benefits, that's a good place to start. What about other suggestions? Agencies, departments, programs? Sure. I mean, there's been private sector belt-tightening like there's no tomorrow. As you know, sir, the question is, where's the federal belt-tightening?
Well, that's the question it should be. You know, what we ought to do is at least try and reduce federal spending and federal bureaucracy by at least 1% every year, and maybe as much as 5% every year. If we would reduce, if we would all take a pay cut around here, I think we'd all be better off as well. And keep in mind, when I was saying we've never had a fiscal conservative majority in my 34 years in the Senate, that's because we've always had 3 to 6 liberal Republicans who will go with the all-liberal Democrats, and they've actually had the majority. We've won some battles through great presidential leadership, Reagan, Bush 1, Bush 2, and even Clinton on occasion. But, you know, unless we can change the nature of Congress and get people here who are willing to cut back and willing to look at the bureaucracy and say, we don't need this, we don't need that, we're not going to ever get these things under control. And I got to tell you, unless we can basically change the nature of Congress, I think they get more credit for spending than they do for conserving.
All right, Senator, just the last one quickly. You've been a top man on the Judiciary Committee for many, many years. We've got a Supreme Court opening coming up because of Justice John Paul Stevens' resignation. You have floated a deliciously tantalizing rumor that former Senator and now Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will be on the Supreme Court. What's happening with that? Do you know this, sir? Would you support Ms. Clinton?
Well, let's put it this way. At this particular point, I'd want to look at everybody. We would need to be very thorough in our examination. But when I did float that, almost immediately the White House said, no, she's going to continue as Secretary of State, which makes you wonder, is that what she's going to do, or are they really covering this up, or what are they trying to do? And actually, I think Hillary Clinton would be better than some that I've heard that this president is considering. I think if the president's wise, he's going to find somebody that will get a tremendous bipartisan support. That would help his party. That would help him as a president. It would show that he's trying to be sincere and trying to bring people together in a bipartisan nature. But I don't think they're going to do that. I think in the end they'll probably pick some really, really liberal person who's going to be an activist on the court.
Accepting Hillary Clinton, who might be your choice for that bipartisan support?
Well, I'd rather not say right now because I don't want to kill that person's chances, because I think it would kill their chances. But no, it just makes sense to pick somebody who both parties can support. It would be nice to have a 100-to-zip vote around here because the president has considered both sides, both parties, the future of our country, and really pick somebody who would be widely supported. I don't think that's what's going to happen. That hasn't been what's happened with Democratic appointees, and the Democrats feel the same thing about Republican appointees. But you can't knock Roberts and Alito. They're 2 of the best justices we've ever had on the Supreme Court.
Senator Orrin Hatch, we thank you for your time, sir, very, very much.
Nice to be with you.